Welcome to Three Peas in a Pod.
In this podcast, we aim to give you real, sincere, educational information on pediatrics, parenting, and perimenopause, and the big circle that links them all together.
I'm Christy Herselman. I am a speaker, writer, mother of three, and founder of a movement called The Chat.
And I am Claudia Gray. I'm a pediatrician and an allergy specialist. I have 4 kids of my own and lots of years of experience with parents and children.
So Claudia, let's get right into this because I'm very excited about this conversation today. And we've entitled it Immune Boosters in Children, Help or Hype. Now, this is a big debate in my home because I was raised in a household where all of your vitamins, your minerals, and everything you needed could be found in your food. And my mom believed that you didn't need any extra supplements. And my husband comes from a family where they do take various supplements at different ages, different ones for the kids, different ones for the women. And so it is a bit of a debate in our house as to whether we need them or not and whether they're just a waste of money. And so it is a massive industry right now. And as a parent, there's often, the talk in the car park about this amazing supplement that someone's child is on and how it's made them smarter and more energetic and a whole bunch of stuff. And then maybe the inclination would be then to rush out and buy it. And so there's hundreds of vitamins and minerals and supplements and immune boosters that children can be on. But do our children really need them? Or is it a hype? Do they need them to stave off these infections, the colds, the flus? And are they even dangerous for them?
Yeah, Christy. So it's a real question because there is just so much out there and we also don't want to be left behind. We want the latest and greatest. But there have been 2 recent features in the press, both in the past month, where they talked about commonly used vitamins and minerals having potential side effects. And it's a real eye-opener. You might have seen the press release in January by the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority called SAHPRA. And they ruled that children under the age of 18 should not get zinc supplements in the form of zinc picolinate. And they should not get selenium supplements because the absorption of these substances is quite erratic. So the chances of side effects, such as gut side effects, are higher. And this was an eye-opener because so many children are on these particular formulations. And the second press release, I trained in the United Kingdom on the NHS, the National Health System, so I keep an eye out for that. And they've put out a warning in this last month as well, saying the people, especially the elderly, need to watch out for vitamin D overdose. So in countries such as the United Kingdom and even here in our younger children who are not exposed to much sunshine, we often recommend vitamin D supplementation. But very often the doses found in supplements are 10, 15 times higher than the actual recommended dose, which in vitamin D is 400 to 800 units per day. And then they describe side effects such as bone pains, fatigue, brain fog, and gastrointestinal side effects, which sounds like menopausal symptoms, really.
Yeah.
But they said, beware of your vitamin D doses.
Sure. And they're formal warnings. They've come out in these journals. And as the average mom, I don't hear about these things. I probably am more led by advertising and what everyone else is doing. And so I think it's really important. And that's why I'm excited about this episode is I'd really love us to unpack what are the myths, what are the truths, and get some really good advice for the moms out there on whether or not they should be using them. And why do you, first of all, think that parents are rushing out to buy these? Why are we not just relying on good food, healthy food? Why are parents so prone to popping those vitamins into their baskets and paying quite a lot of money for them?
Absolutely. Well, I think, Christy, we're generally in the age of instant gratification, aren't we? So we talked about all the digital information promising us these quick fixes. And I think it's really the same mode of thinking. We want to get our little toddlers and our little children healthier, better, quicker. It's a feeling of hurriedness.
Yeah.
But the reality is toddlers and young children are sickly little creatures.
They
And this
are.
is kind of a necessary part of life because they're developing their little immune systems.
Germ factories.
And they're exposed to germ factories, and now
Yes.
they're developing shields against them.
Yeah.
And, apart from vaccination, you can only really have good defense against an infection by having that infection, getting the antibodies, so the next time you meet it, you don't get that sick. And that's why sicknesses are much more common in young children. Then they get fewer and fewer and fewer as we get older. Because at our age, we know most of the infections. Every now and again, a new strain of flu comes out, new strain of COVID, and we don't know this. Our body's not ready and we get sick. But little babies, they don't know any of them right in the beginning.
Yeah.
So toddlers and babies are sickly little creatures. And we kind of feel like we want to do something, we want to have a magic bullet, but it cannot all be prevented. So this notion of immune boosting is really quite misunderstood and quite sensationalized, because the bottom line is there's no magic immune booster to keep us healthy. We can go a long way in optimizing our health and our ability to fight infection by getting the basics right. And yes, there is a role for supplements at recommended doses to help us, but the basics have to be in place first.
Okay. So it's about getting back to the basics. And so just on that, so was my mom right? Do you just need to eat healthy food and everything will be okay?
Christy, to a large extent, obviously at the risk of sounding simplistic, food provides the building blocks for your immunity. And healthy food, large variety, every food group has a role. Vitamins and minerals and fruits and veggies and antioxidants, they are all there to protect our immune systems. And we see it, malnourished children have a poor immune system, they die of sepsis. So we need to provide our toddlers and young kids with as much variety, as many colors as possible, and food as close to Mother Earth as possible. Of course, toddlers are notoriously fussy, so we need to often provide them with a whole bunch of options. But we shouldn't leave out entire food groups like a carb-free or etc. It's not going to work for children. They need protein, they need carbohydrates, except for very rare medical conditions. They need antioxidants, so fruits and veggies. They need zinc, they need protein. They need some awesome, wholesome foods.
Yeah, that's amazing. I remember my midwife used to say, give them lots of healthy options and they'll eat some of them. And don't give up on a food just because your child doesn't eat it the first time. Sometimes it takes them 3, 4, 5 times.
14, 15,
14,
16
15.
times. Yeah.
And when our kids were little, Green Eggs and Ham was the book we would read to them. And we would say to them when they didn't want to try something, we would just say, Green Eggs and Ham. And that would be code in our family for you've got to try.
Absolutely.
And, there's very few foods that my kids won't eat now. But I remember that being such great advice, because I remember her saying, little kids don't starve themselves to death. They will eat. But make sure that when they do get hungry, you've given them the healthy options of things to eat. Because sometimes it's so easy for us as parents we just want to get food in them. So we'll resort to the fish fingers and the Cocoa Pops, and those things that are loaded with sugar. Is there a link between sugar and immune system?
Yeah, so it's not just sugar, it's all the highly processed foods, which often contain a lot of chemicals, but also are laden with refined sugar. So they put your blood sugar up quickly and then it crashes. Your insulin is all over the show. And they're quite addictive because of the dopamine aspect of the high sugar. So these high sugar, highly processed foods are extremely dangerous. They're like a drug because we crave more and more. But what they do is they empty calories. So they're not healthy calories. And they take away our appetite for the good food. Yeah. And then the good food is what builds our immune system. So we don't have that. And at the same time, both sugar and processed foods, or refined sugar, I should say, are pro-inflammatory. So they make us feel horrible. They increase inflammation. They use up some of our chemicals, which could be used for other good things. And I see this with my little eczema patients. I say to them, when I look at trigger factors, beware of the birthday party effect. The day after a birthday party, lots of our eczema kids are riddled with a flare because they've eaten sugar, they've eaten highly processed foods, and it is pro-inflammatory.
Wow, that's incredible. So staying away from sugar has that double benefit of keeping their bodies healthier and letting them get hungry for the good stuff.
Absolutely.
That's excellent. So my daughter was very prim. She was born at 32 weeks. Once I did get her home from the neonatal, we were recommended to keep her home for a while. I think the doctor, my ped, said, keep her home for 3 months. Don't go into shopping malls. Don't go to parks. Let her build her immune system. And so what would you say for kids who are not prim, just your everyday toddler or child? Should we be afraid of germs? Should we be keeping our kids at home? Should we be keeping them out of public places to allow their immune systems to grow? Or does that have the opposite effect?
It's actually almost the opposite. In a weird kind of way, we want the exposure to train their immune systems. Also, we want some time outdoors. We want messy play. We want time in the sun, controlled time, because it allows us to produce natural vitamin D, which is so important for our immune systems. Fresh air, exercise, great health benefits. I mean, in the Scandinavian countries, they put their babies outside every day, even from day one of life. And there are rules that you have to have forests within 10 minutes walking distance of every residence. So dirt, exposure, fresh air also helps us to diversify our healthy bacteria that we carry on our skin and in our guts. And we're learning more and more that this microbiome, this collection of bugs in our systems is so important for our immune systems.
Wow. So actually, I'm right then, Claudia, that kids are better off outside in the park than inside on their iPad.
Absolutely. For many reasons, Christy.
For many reasons, which we will get into at a later stage. Now, I know in my life that I tend to get more sick when I'm stressed.
Yeah.
But does this apply to little kids? Because surely their lives are relatively stress-free. Do you see any connection between stress and lowered immune system in kids?
Absolutely. So, I mean, you can look at studies of little orphans and just that loneliness and that they are more sickly. So, plenty of healthy hugs and cuddles. And as part of avoiding stress in kiddies is exercise, time outside, getting rid of their, extra energy, controlling screen time. But as important, which is the hardest step as parents, is not to overcommit them to a whole bunch of activities. Monday is this singing thing. Tuesday is the swimming. Wednesday is the clamber club. Thursday is this. That's actually pretty stressful for our kids. They need to have unstructured time. And that's so important for their mental well-being, and then also for their immune systems.
So at home, playing with the Tupperwares, emptying the Tupperware drawer is probably better than going to a whole bunch of activities.
With the dog around licking you. Absolutely.
And this actually reminds me when Emily was in the neonatal, we did what we call kangaroo care, where they would put her onto my chest. Would that have been also about lowering her stress levels?
Yeah, lowered stress levels, temperature regulation, and transmission of the healthy microbiome from mother to child.
Oh my goodness.
So many reasons.
All in one. Yeah, that's amazing.
All in one.
Okay, so no rushing them from activity to activity, structured and simple. Okay, got it. Now, I've also heard antibiotics. There's so much talk about this and when to give them, and we're going to talk about that in other episodes as well. But is it true that antibiotics lower the immune systems?
It is absolutely true, Christy. So just to still, as part of our general baseline health, avoid unnecessary medications because many of them actually do affect your immunity. Antibiotics are obviously absolutely necessary in some cases, especially for severe bacterial infections. So sometimes they're needed, but they are very often used unnecessarily as well. And they disturb our microbiome in our gut. They kill off good bacteria too. So the signals with our immune system are lost for up to 6 months afterwards, Christy. So often when we've been down and had an infection, been on antibiotics, I find then you get the next infection so soon after. People just say, I'm just going through a bad time. Antacids. So, our tiny little babies with a bit of colic and gripes get antacids left, right, and center. But actually, our tummy with the acidity is the first line of defense against many bugs like tummy bugs. So if we're wiping that out, these kids are more prone to infections, things like Clostridium. And steroids. We will talk about that in our next episode, how steroids are overused orally in kids when they've just got simple colds, and they can weaken our immune response. So as part of our general care and our basics, it's avoiding unnecessary medication.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. And then also I noticed that if I've been really busy and I've not slept enough, even right now I've got a bit of a cold because I'm in Cape Town, settling my daughter at university, working, launching a podcast, doing talks, and I've picked up a little cold. Is that the same for our children? Because sometimes it's hard to get sleep patterns right in our kids, but how important is sleep in building their immunity?
Absolutely imperative.
Really?
If you think about your life, a third in young babies, half of their lives are spent asleep. So there must be a message in that. Sleep is when we repair and we get better. So you've noticed, I've noticed when I don't sleep much, so often when you've had exams and you've had the stress and you've had the low sleep, you manage your exams, a week later you're sick as a dog. So really do what it takes to get the whole family to sleep enough.
Okay. Gosh, so those basics are really, really important in strengthening our immunity. So let's get to the juicy part. Do they need supplements? If we do all of these things and we get them right, is that enough?
Yeah. So if you don't mind, we are going to talk about which supplements are helpful, but let's talk about the potential harms of supplements up front so that we're very clear about this. So first of all, no supplement can entirely prevent viruses or infections or treat them. There's no substitute for a healthy lifestyle. Once again, we have to take every step in our lives. We can't take the elevator. It's going to backfire. So a healthy diet, more important than supplements. There are, of course, some children in high-risk situations. So those extremely fussy eaters, or those who've got multiple allergies and which reduces the variety they can eat, or those with celiac disease, or vegetarians, for example, they will need certain supplements because we need to fill in the gaps. But remember that excessive supplements can also cause side effects.
Yeah. So those studies showed us that new evidence is coming to light. And I'm sure as we study these things, we learn new things. But can you tell us a little bit about some of those side effects?
Yeah, so let's talk about vitamins, which we all think are completely harmless. Remember that vitamins A, D, E, and K are what we call fat soluble. So they're not just weed out by our kidneys. They stick around for a long time. So you can accumulate levels that are even toxic. We've heard about vitamin D overdose, where you get brain fog and aches and tummy cramps. Vitamin A is so important for respiratory health and is in fact part of our recommended on our vaccination schedule. But in overdose, vitamin A can cause what we call a raised intracranial pressure. So your brain can swell and you get terrible headaches. Some of the water-soluble vitamins, like vitamin C, in overdose, because they weed out and they're processed by our kidneys, they can actually cause kidney stones if your dose is too high. And excessive minerals, so like iron, which we have to give to some kids because they're vegetarian or iron deficiency, they can reach toxic levels if you overdose them. We've heard about even simple things like zinc. And very importantly, these vitamins and minerals and supplements and immune boosters are generally not tested and not looked at by our medicine regulatory agencies because they're not considered medicines. So they don't have to go through rigorous studies. And that in itself is quite scary, that we're actually having stuff that hasn't been formally tested or approved.
And that was always one of my mom's arguments. She was a nurse, so anything that was tested by the correct people, she was happy with that. But she said with a lot of these natural things with supplements, they're not. So
she's absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Mom's always right. So okay, so we know that they're not cure-alls, but what are some of the vitamins and supplements that can be useful for us?
Yeah, so let's quickly dash through some. Vitamin D. So more and more we're understanding that vitamin D is part of our immune system. And we've heard that in overdose, it can be dangerous. But at the recommended dose, 400 to 800 units, international units per day, it can have an important role in immunity, especially for those people who don't get much sun exposure.
And as South Africans, do we generally get enough from the sun?
Or? I did my own vitamin D levels, they were low. Can you believe it? So now I'm on a controlled dose. In fact, the dose I'm taking, I found a tablet with 1,000 units. That's too much. That's why I only take it every second day to get that average good.
That dosage right.
Zinc is essential for optimal immune function, for wound healing. We give it to kids who've had a tummy bug to help the tummy lining heal. But we've heard high doses can cause side effects, but in doses of 5 to 20 milligrams, it's a good supplement. Vitamin C, great antioxidant. We know about those sailors who got scurvy and you got life-threatening illnesses when they were deficient in fresh veggies. Okay. So we need vitamin C, but only at 25 to 100 milligrams a day. And what do most of these fizzy things contain? 1,000 milligrams. Absolutely. 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C, great. But next thing, you get a kidney stone.
Okay, so correct dose.
B vitamins. They're good for enzyme function. Luckily, our B vitamins are mostly weed out. And that's why when we take multivitamins and go to the toilet, it's normally a lovely golden color.
Is that the B vitamin?
Because your body is saying, well, I'm saturated with this already. I don't need you.
I've seen that.
You know, vitamin A, we've talked about in overdose, can cause even increase in brain pressure. If you're deficient in vitamin A, you can get more respiratory illnesses. You can get worse measles should you catch it. So, you know, all of these at the recommended doses really can have beneficial effects.
So it's really important that we know
the dose,
the age of our child and what dose they need. Okay, quickly about, I obviously know probiotics quite well. You always get that when you get an antibiotic to protect your gut. But now I hear of prebiotics and probiotics. Can you just clarify that for me?
Well, to make it even more complicated, there are also postbiotics.
Oh my goodness.
But you know what? I think we need to do a whole episode on pre and probiotics. Essentially, probiotics are supposedly healthy bacteria that help you keep a healthy microbiome or repopulate it when you've had antibiotics. So they're not immune boosters as such. They're just healthy for your microbiome. But actually, we don't know the right doses. We don't know the right strains. So a lot of this is a bit of smash and grab. And we must make sure it's from a reputable company that's not just a fly-by-night, overnight supplement that they're promoting on social media. Prebiotics are, I think, better than probiotics because prebiotics are non-digestible sugars and fibers that actually feed the bacteria in our gut. So they're acting as food. So you're not giving someone bacteria, you're giving them their food. And then your own population of bugs can flourish. And then postbiotics are actually the products that the microbiota make. So instead of giving you the bugs, which then make the product, we actually give you the finished product. So all of these, they're not going to absolutely make you immune to all infections, but they do have a role.
Yeah, and I know we'll talk about this, but gut health is super important.
Yeah, we'll talk about that separately, and it's essential to your immunity, gut health. Omegas, fatty acids, all the hype, also brain health, retinal health, anti-inflammatory, but they're not really immune boosters. It doesn't mean to say they're not healthy, but they're not going to suddenly cure all infections. And we have to get the balance of omega-3 and omega-6 right, which we'll talk about another time. Yeah. Elderberry, often in these immune supplements, it's okay. It's not great, but if it's given raw, it can be toxic. Garlic is a fairly safe antibacterial, antiviral. Curcumin or turmeric, we've talked about, it's anti-inflammatory, but in overdose, it can actually cause liver failure. Echinacea is kind of okay. Quercetin, I know we're running out of time, but I want to tell you a quick story. So lots of adults are on quercetin because it's a supplement that's anti-inflammatory and it's also supposed to really regulate your blood sugar well. So it's quite good for type 2 diabetics, for big bodies like us, but for little kids, it's easy to overdose. So 2 years ago, I had a little patient who was 2 years old, whose mother had given him, at the advice of a health practitioner, so it wasn't her fault, a regular dose of quercetin. And after a week, he started becoming drowsy and floppy, and he was almost comatose. And his blood sugar was 1.2, so very, very low. So effective it was in his blood sugar control that he was comatose. Once again, we really have to be careful.
Sure. It really is a minefield out there. Absolutely. I think I'm going to be reading those inserts very carefully and I'm speaking to the people I trust, my healthcare practitioners, about what is safe and what is not, rather than the ladies in the car park.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap it up, what is your parenting pearl regarding supplements?
I'm afraid I can't say one pearl. I'm going to have to make a little string of pearls for this one.
Perfect.
Number one, discuss with your health care practitioner whether your child may have a potential deficiency that does need to be supplemented. Number two, if you're doing it yourself, buying over the counter, make sure you use the recommended doses, not the mega doses. Number three, choose as few supplements as possible to fill the gaps. But that brings us to number four. If you have got multiple supplements, make sure there's not overlap. So your multivitamin may have vitamin D, and your vitamin D supplement obviously has vitamin D. And then you might reach a dose that's way too high on a daily level. And then lastly, remember the basics. We can't give fancy supplements and expect the child to be good and healthy if the basics are not in place. Sleep, stress management, limiting medicines that can affect our immune systems, optimizing our nutrition, healthy sunshine. They are safer and better than any supplement.
Okay, so we can't do fish fingers and a supplement. We must do a healthy balance of everything.
Healthy balance of everything will be more effective, Christy.
More effective. Okay. We are running out of time. Thank you so much. That was so insightful. So much to consider. And I think it is also just so empowering for me as a mom to think, well, just get back to the basics.
Yeah.
Just get back to the basics. It'll be okay. And then if there are gaps, we fill those gaps.
We fill the gaps.
So I'm excited about our next episode. And that is kind of running on from this one is commonly used cold and flu medications, hurting or harming. This is going to be exciting because there used to be a flu season. There seems to be flu and colds all year round now, depending on what crazy weather is going on. But I'm really looking forward to that. So we'll see you all in 2 weeks' time with that episode. Until then, signing off from 3 Peas in a Pod, and have an amazing week.
And just remember, this podcast is for educational purposes and doesn't replace professional health care, but we will do our best to give you important evidence-based information. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.